God bless all of you today, both here and online streaming, I hope. Super Bowl parties, I hope. I don't want to stir up family trouble. It's just not in me to do that. It does intrigue me, however, that one of our members actually had the nerve to post that he's in swanky suites at the Super Bowl. And I see his wife and son here today. But like I say, I don't want to stir up any trouble. I guess he just didn't have enough money for his wife and his son. And I said something to his wife. She says, no, he took a friend. I couldn't survive that. I'm not calling any names. I'm just telling you I couldn't survive that. God bless all of you today. It is Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know what that means. I don't even know who's playing. I don't even know who's at halftime. I don't even want to watch it. And then I got told by my wife, your son-in-law has 3 commercials on the Super Bowl today. You should go over to their house and watch the commercials. So thanks. I'm coming to your house to eat. Well, it's exciting, I guess, for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. I don't know why exactly, but I did when I was younger. It is amazing how your priorities change, isn't it, through life? The people I used to call old fogies, I have become. People I used to think have no fun, we just measure fun differently. I have lots of fun. Most of it doesn't involve anything that I can get hurt in or anything that requires me to sit still for 4 hours or 5 and watch. Nonetheless, I guess today's an exciting day for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. I'm glad you're here. We do miss those who are sick, and there are several who are sick, and we miss them. Did you notice the enthusiasm and exuberance that all the children demonstrated when they got to go upstairs? It doesn't hurt my feelings that they're excited to get out of here. But if their parents start running out with them some Sunday, that would probably hurt my feelings. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit today about light time. It's light time. I don't know if you've been paying attention. I bet you have. But, man, America's weird. It's almost as if, let's say we used to be powered with a 1,000-watt generator and some big bright light bulbs. Some of them seem to have gone out. Have you ever been in a football stadium when a bank of lights went out? You could still see, but it looked weird. Plenty of light. You could actually play ball by it, but until they found the breaker that threw, it's just not going to seem quite right. It may just be my observation, but that's kind of what it looks like America is to me these days. A bank of lights has gone out. I don't know if anybody's going to find the breaker or not, but a bank of lights has gone out. We are probably closer than ever to fitting the description of the people that Isaiah wrote to. In Isaiah, the 20th chapter, Isaiah wrote, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. And I see some of that these days. If you stand up for righteousness, you may get sued. If you stand up for illegal activity and illegal behavior, the American Civil Liberties Union may actually support you and defend you pro bono in court. If somebody in your congregation pulls a cell phone out and catches you saying, Islam is a dark religion, and if you've traveled to an Islamic country, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's an oppression, there's a darkness, and somebody records you saying that in your pulpit, and then they put it on Facebook. You could be in danger of hate crime speech. There's a law against that. Did you see that this past week? I chuckled when I saw it because I thought, well, none of you need to whip out your cell phone today and record anything that I'm saying. It's on live streaming. So have at it, Uncle Sam, and just enjoy it, ACLU, because it's there, and there's no hate implied or involved in anything I'm going to say now or ever. It's just truth. Jesus is the light of the world. The world's growing dark. And Isaiah prophesied a long time ago, 2,800 years or more ago. They put darkness for light, light for darkness, bitter for sweet, sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes. Woe to those who are prudent in their own sight. Woe to those who are pretty good at drinking mixed drinks with the best of them. I'm just reading you from Isaiah. Valiant men who love their drink, and they justify the wicked as long as the wicked will bribe and pay the right. I don't know about you, but I read this and I think, man, they take justice from the righteous man? I've seen that a lot recently, and I posted the preacher's sermon that I don't know if that's a church member that caught that little piece on there, but it's a pretty big church, Christian Life Church. Nathaniel Haney, the pastor in California, Stockton. I bet those sermons are on DVD. You can probably just get the whole sermon and watch the whole thing. You don't have to just see a little clip posted by someone who was visiting that day and captured him saying Islam is dark. I'm just going to say anything that's not centered around Jesus Christ is dark. Want to sue me? Sue me. I don't care. I'll tell you that Judaism, as much as their history is steeped in the Old Testament and the truth on which our platform is built, it's dark there without Jesus Christ. Hinduism and Buddhism may have a lot of great proponents in the world, and some wonderful people may have come from those religions, but according to my religion and my faith and my Bible, they don't have the light. And the light identified himself as Jesus Christ. He called himself the light of the world. In him there is no darkness, but everywhere else there is. That's not hate. That's just quoting scriptures. It's troubling to me. Jesus warned us. We shouldn't be surprised. Jesus himself warned us in John the 9th chapter. I got to work while it's day. And then in that phrase, he said, the night comes. So he told us ahead of time, it's going to get so dark one day. The night is coming that's going to be so absolutely dark that you won't be able to work. Now, he just used that parallel. So have you ever been in a really dark night? I mean, a really, really dark night. You ever heard Vietnam veterans talk about how dark the nights were in Vietnam? I don't know what it was, but, well, I kind of do. Man, we didn't have lights burning. After a certain time in the evening, 10 o'clock, you turn off the lights. You don't have street lights. You don't have anything that would identify you as a target and somebody could pinpoint you from a hill or a mountain. And so all lights go on. When they say lights out, they meant lights out. And so when the lights go out and you don't even have one in your hooch and you didn't have computers to give you a blue glow or it's just dark. Just dark. You don't walk very far. I literally went to mail a letter one night. I knew the way. I knew right out of my hooch. There was a little boardwalk, keep you above the water in the monsoon season. And right around the corner there was a gate that kind of went through a stand-down area that was not being used. I knew I could walk through that gate and just try to keep a straight bead across to far from here to the doors there. But I can't tell you how dark the night was. I just knew it was there, and I knew if I walked carefully and as straight as I could imagine, that when I got there, I'd feel the fence and I'd find the gate and be able to walk through it. And then I knew just a few paces up there was a little mail drop where we dropped our mail, and I'd make it back. It was after lights out. And I'm telling you how dark it was as I was walking slowly from here to those doors in a little stand-down area. Suddenly, I was just aware of somebody in front of me. Could not see them. It was that dark. I just knew, I felt it, I sensed it. Maybe I heard his breath. Maybe I heard his clothes rustle. But I just froze for a moment, and I just stopped. My eyes were straining so hard to see. And then all of a sudden, finally, I heard breathing. And I reached out to just see if I could feel anybody. And as I reached out, I brushed some fabric, and then I heard the breech of the M16 come back. And I don't mind telling you, when I heard the breech come out, I hit the ground, and I low crawled where I thought that gate was. And before I got to the gate, some nuthead high on something, intoxicating drink, just opened up belly high with an M16 around that whole area. In daylight the next morning, I saw all the bullet holes around the fence. He didn't hit me because I was on the ground and crawling crazy. And I got to the gate, got through it, managed to run down to the mailbox and drop my letter in the box. That was a priority. And then I ran across a little boardwalk and beat on the CO's door, and he was already coming out pulling his pants up. What in the world? And he said, "Are we being hit?" And I said, "No, there's some nut down there in the stand down." And so we had to wait till he ran out of bullets. When he emptied his clip, we could at least see by the flash of his muzzle where he was. And when he emptied his clip, we were able to rush him and take care of business. Black, and you can't see your friend, you can't see your enemy when it's really, 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 really dark. You don't know. It's just dark. I'm telling you, if you hadn't noticed, America and the world slipping into darkness, getting darker by the day, darker every time you watch the evening news, darker every time you flip on your laptop. It's getting darker. Have you noticed it? Can you tell? It's getting dark in the world. Man, you ever wonder what you're going to do when it gets so dark? Wish I had a candle, but I don't have one. Hey, I got an idea. I see somebody's face glowing. Anybody else got a phone? That's one way. That's okay. You can leave it on, Lexi. That's one way to find out who's playing games while I'm preaching. Hey, pull out a cell phone and help me a little bit. Come on, you don't have to have a flashlight. You got a flashlight on there? That's good. How about just the glow of your cell phone? Come on, let's see. You got them. Pull them out. Come on. You know everybody in here has got a cell phone of some kind. Just come on. Let's see it. Oh, my goodness, look. And I was scared a moment ago. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to find my way out. But look, all around the room, look at all. Isn't that great? Hold them up. You got them? Come on, there's more. Look at this. You can make this room. I told you that I'm preaching about light time. It's light time. Doesn't this look great? In a room that was scary a minute ago? Doesn't this look great? You can see me. I can see myself. Okay, Jeff, let's have some lights. The right kind. What do? What are you and I going to do? What's a Christian supposed to do? If the lights go out in your lifetime, if America ever gets to the place, and I'm telling you, I see the groundwork being laid right now for an Orwellian style of control of the population. If you don't know what that is, Google it. You'll find his book, and you can read a very interesting read from the 80s. Interestingly, I think the Bible actually tells us what to do. Let me share a couple of verses with you. From John, the 9th chapter, verse 4, I just referred to a minute ago. Jesus said, work while it's day, because the night's coming when no man can work. Can I just leave you with one simple point from that verse? It's day. It's not night yet. It's day. What are you doing? Are you playing? Or are you working? Jesus said, work while it's day. It's day. What are you doing for Jesus? Are you doing anything at all that you could say, I'm doing this for Jesus? Don't talk about coming to church. That's good, and we love it, and his word says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves. But really and truly, is Jesus getting something from you? Are you passing him on? Are you sharing him? Are you letting him lead you and letting him help you lead your families? And I'm just asking. I'm not going to throw out any, here's how you do it. I'm just telling you that doesn't it look pretty clear from his comment that he made the assumption. It's not night yet, then you work. It's day. Work. Night's coming when you can't. But it's not here yet. You can work. You can do a lot of things. You can promote him 1,000 ways. Staying in the book of John, 8th chapter, Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness, but he shall have the light. If you're a Christian, you will not be terrified by darkness because you'll never be in it. You'll always have the light. Isn't that what he said? Have you been in a few little dark places in your lifetime? Have you discovered that he was there in your dark hole in the world? I don't want to belabor the point and mention Vietnam twice in the same sermon, but I can tell you Vietnam was, for me, one of my most life-changing experiences. I was a church boy, born in the church, raised in the church, spent every Sunday in my life in the church. You didn't tell my mom and daddy you couldn't go to church. You went to church. I saw one of our dads made his son bring his homework to church the other day. I can't tell you how many times I've done homework in church because I wasn't going to stay home and do it. Goofed off again, didn't you, my daddy would say. Guess what goof-offs do? What? Twice the work. You're going to church and you're going to do your homework and you'll stay up all night if you have to, or you go to bed when I tell you and you'll just fail tomorrow. But you do it. You do what? That's just the way I was raised. And then I got drafted and went to Vietnam, and guess what Vietnam didn't have? Church. Didn't have my comfort zone. Didn't have a trio. Didn't have a guitar. Man, we had a band in my church. We had too much of a band sometimes. They let the youth play occasionally, and one time there were about 7 of us that did not know how to play guitar, but got to stand on the stage and beat them, make noise. I decided that I needed an amplifier bigger than everybody else's. Some of you won't remember the Fender Bassman amp that filled up the back seat of a car when you put it in a 61 Chevy Impala. But I had a Fender Bassman amp. It was that tall. I wanted to be sure I overpowered all the other guitar players on my church stage. I don't know how they put up with that, and I know they didn't do it very long. But for one short period, they let us all try to play, and then they said, okay, we're going back to our 2 guitarists, and the rest of you, you can play out on the parking lot. They were serious. They set us a trailer up, we played in the parking lot. on Saturdays, trying to get people to stop and listen. Even rolled us down one time in front of Luby's cafeteria. One time. We were never invited back. It was bad. But it was church for me. And it was a comfort zone. And that's what we did. We tried to play for Jesus. And then I went to Vietnam, and there was no church and no band and no choir. Well, we had chapel, but the only one I went to the first week I was there, there were like 2 other boys in the chapel service. And there were 3 of us, and we listened to a chaplain get up and curse and swear and vent. And when he got through turning the air blue for about 10 minutes, then he explained himself. I only did that so you would know God doesn't care what you do in Vietnam. Somehow that wasn't what any of us were looking for. We were looking for the extension of what we had at home. Live right, live nobly, live with integrity, keep your head up, love Jesus, share him. We didn't get that. Man, it was dark. But I discovered something in Vietnam. Might have been dark, but I was never without the light. I had him. And wherever I went, he was with me. Whether I was ducking and low crawling to a gate or hiding in a drainage ditch waiting for the enemy to pass by, I always knew. I'm telling you, I always knew that I had the light with me. Had some wonderful and miraculous things happen in Vietnam that could only happen because the light was there. I have to tell you that I thought the light dwelled in my little church in Mesquite, Texas. I thought that's where it lived. That outside of that, everybody else was going to hell. Just us 4 and no more. And we had found the light, and we had it. And I discovered that the light was there where the darkness was. It's like wherever I went, it was there. I understand it now. He was the light. I had the light of Jesus Christ. It didn't matter how dark my world was. I was always going to have light. You with me? And then Matthew, the 5th chapter, Jesus said, you. Point at your chest and say, me. I am the light. Jesus said, you are the light of the world. City set on a hill can't be hid. Men don't light a candle, put it under a bushel. They put it up on a candlestick. And it gives light to everybody in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Jesus was the light of the world. He said so. And then he came into our hearts by faith and by invitation. And he tried to explain it simply by using this character of light. You are. You. So I'm just telling you today, no matter how dark it gets in the world, the darker it gets, the more it simply means it's light time. Because you're the light. And you're supposed to be lighting the way and showing the world what Jesus is and what he's like. It's your time to shine. It's a pitiful world we live in. Frightening in some places. It's a scary America. I don't mean because Obama was president and Trump's president. Presidents don't really make the world scary. They're just men with carnal flaws and problems like everybody else. But you and I have watched for the last 8 years in the world, Christians since Bush invaded Iraq and destroyed Saddam Hussein, a dictator who at least allowed freedom of religion in his country. For all of that despot's problems and flaws, under his protection, Christians were allowed to thrive and worship and build churches in Iraq. Did you know that? Did you know that under Saddam Hussein there were over 800,000 Christians who worshiped in Baghdad? Did you know, in Iraq rather? Did you know you can't, and had a great church in Baghdad, did you know you can't find any of them today? Not because they're hiding and they're cowards, because they've been killed. There has been a Christian genocide largely ignored by the American press. It wasn't favorable to report it. It didn't make our leadership look good. We cry and whine today over whether or not we should allow some refugees to come to this country. Politicians gripe and scream about the ban, temporary ban. Hollywood is going into an absolute frothing at the mouth, insane tirade. I get it. I don't care. Maybe we don't have compassion. I'm just wondering where all those people were when Christians have been being routinely slaughtered, butchered, burned, desecrated in inhumane ways before they were killed. Where have you been? Where have you been, Hollywood? Where have you been, politicians? Where were all the protests when Christians were being, for the last 8-10 years, Christians have been being slaughtered? And you and I, nobody, there wasn't one march in the streets when 300 girls, Christian girls, were kidnapped in by the Boko Haram. Nobody? It made news one day, and then it went away, and the girls were never found. There was no military team sent from SEAL Team 6. Nobody. It's just like, let's find Osama bin Laden. But let's not continue to bother the world and put it on the front pages that 300 Christian girls were kidnapped and have never been found, because nobody looked for them. There were no protests. There were no marches. It's just sad, but it just goes to show you how dark our world has been. Don't for a moment confuse protests that are going on right now and don't confuse that with people trying to shine light. Oh no. If they'd been trying to shine light, they would have been shining it for a long time. We've had 10 years the light needed to be shined on what was going on, and that Jesus Christ was the Savior of the world, and He came to save the world, and He's being brutally slaughtered, and His followers are being brutally slaughtered, and finally one priest in Baghdad has actually gone public in the last few weeks, and he has said about the American protesters, where were they when our Christians here in Baghdad started being slaughtered 8-10 years ago? And he's watched his vast Christian population become decimated, not because they moved to a better climate, but because they no longer live. You and I, once in a while, ought to feel ashamed to walk into church with our freedom and yawn and scratch our noses and wonder why it isn't. I wish they'd be a little more exciting now and then. We ought to be ashamed sometimes to have 1 ounce of criticism against anybody, any Christian in America trying to do it, no matter how badly we do things we do. Whether you like a post on Facebook or you dislike a sermon or it doesn't. If somebody's trying to say something for Jesus, you ought to be ashamed for having criticism when you didn't criticize the slaughter of over 1 million Christians in the last 10 years. I have challenged you as my church, and I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I can preach in this pulpit into that camera, and I can tell all of you Christians out there, I don't care what denomination you're from and how many verses you quote and how strong you think you are in doctrine, when you waste your life and your time smearing other preachers like Joel Osteen and Rick Warren or Danny Carpenter or Nathan Haney or anybody else that you want to smear because they simply haven't said it the way you think it ought to be said, and they didn't read the verse you think is the keynote verse for your doctrine, and you want to split hairs and divide and conquer among Christianity and drive away one denomination and embrace another or none. If that's the best you can do with your Christianity, you're a part of the darkness of the world, not part of the light. Jesus himself said, I have sheep that you don't even know about. I have sheep that are not even of this pasture. When his disciples said, Lord, they didn't accept us, and they don't want you to come to their town. We're going to burn them out. Really? Let us call down fire from heaven. We're not going to throw the Molotov cocktail. We're just going to ask you to do it. Come on, God. Zap that town and burn it up. That was Jesus' disciples. But thankfully, Jesus didn't buy into that. He didn't say, okay, that'll show them. Jesus said, that's nonsense. You don't even know what spirit you're from. You don't even know what you're supposed to be doing. He just bypassed it. They don't want him here. He'll just move on. The logic and the point and the reasoning he was trying to make to them was, we don't punish and destroy people because they disagree with us. We just keep sowing the light. Wherever somebody will accept it, they get it. If they don't, we just move on and you just keep giving good. You don't give bad. You don't repay evil with evil, but you're going to get some evil. Somebody's going to hate you. Somebody's going to slam you. What you going to do when you're going to throw some light at them. Not hatred. Not evil for evil. Just turn the light on. You know how easy, did you see how easy it was? Did you see how easy it was for you a while ago? I don't know how this thing works. I can show you the light. One day it's going to be that easy for you to show somebody Jesus. Because no matter how dim you feel like your little testimony is today, nothing makes a light look bright like darkness. When it's dark in your world, your little light's going to glow. If I had one little candle and Jeff killed all the lights today and I just put one candle up here, it wouldn't take but a moment for your eyes to start adjusting and you say, man, that's a bright candle. Because it's the only light in the room. It's bright. I like what Ashley said a while ago about Jim Brady. I'm sorry that he said it the way he did. I'm sorry, Tom Brady. Thank you for all the, man, that was a lot of corrections, wasn't it? I'm sorry, Super Bowl Tom Brady. Oh. And Jim, I'm sorry I called your name wrong. Tom Brady. I don't know how old that interview is, but he probably has a better connection with God than I do. But to just say it that way, there's got to be something more. Some of you old timers in here probably remember, I think her name was Nancy Sinatra. Was it? Thank goodness. Remember Nancy Sinatra's song? Yeah, you remember it? There you go. Is that all there is, my friend? Then let's keep dancing, because there ain't nothing left if that's all there is. Now, two old people. I'm about convinced the only old person in here besides me is Clifford. He nails that old stuff. She sang a song back in our youth, kind of expressing that despair. Man, I've had it. I've made it. I'm famous. I've got the money. People know me. Is that all there is? Is there nothing else? Turns out there is quite a bit else. I'll leave you today with a story that I've told you before from Jim Cymbala. And yes, that's his name. Not Tom Cymbala. It's Jim Cymbala. He's the pastor of Brooklyn Tabernacle. I believe that's the name of his church. Now, I might be wrong on that. New York City Church. I forgot the name of his book years ago, but years ago he wrote a book and he told a story about a particular Sunday when a man came to the front of his church. And, I can count on this audience to know stuff. Fresh wind, fresh fire. Did I say it right? Is that right? It's a good book. It's old. Not that old, but it's a good book. And then last week, somebody actually posted a clip of Jim Cymbala telling the story that he wrote in that book that I have shared with you from the book before. And I'm telling you, I knew the story before I turned it on, but I turned it on anyway to watch it and hear Jim Cymbala refresh and remind us of that day that happened. And I was going to play it for you today, but he takes way too long to tell the story. He's like I am. When you tell a life-changing story, every little detail is important to you. I've got about 5 life-changing stories. And when I tell them to you, it's going to take me 20 minutes to tell you that story. And that's kind of the way Jim Cymbala does with that story. He tells every little nuance and every detail because it was life-changing for him. I'm going to give you the short version. He had preached 3 sermons, the same sermon 3 times that day. Their church was growing before they built their new building, and they were having 3 services a day on Sunday, and he had finally finished after the 3rd time to preach the same sermon to a 3rd audience, and he was physically spent. He was just tired. And so when the service was over and people were drifting out, he just walked around, talked to a few people, and he sat on the edge of the stage. And he had barely sat down until here came a homeless man. He assumed he was homeless. He had the looks of being homeless. And their church, being a New York City church, they had homeless in there all the time, every service, and somebody always asking for money. They slept outside on the sidewalk sometimes overnight by the church. This particular man, he said, as he was approaching 5 feet out, he was overwhelmed by the stench. Smelled like urine, smelled like feces, smelled body odor. He was horribly odorous. And so Cymbala had to turn his head just to breathe in for a moment. And he was tired. 3 sermons, 3 services. And so he just normally would listen to their story and hear what, everybody's got a good story when they need something. And like all of us pastors, I listen to a lot of stories during the year. And I try to believe all of them, but I find out that a lot of them they just need to tell you something. Nobody wants to walk in and say, "Pastor, can you just help me with $50 or whatever?" So they always have a story, and you try to let them tell it, and you dignify it with with an air of interest and concern. And he said he just was too tired to do it. So on that particular Sunday, he just reached in for his money clip, and he pulled out $5, and the guy walked up, and he just reached it. He just, no time for the story, just reach over to hand him the money. And something happened that had never happened before, and it would change Jim Cymbala forever. The man just pushed his hand back down, clearly needed the $5. Found out later he had slept actually on the sidewalk around the side of the church that night in his own urine. The man pushed the money down and caught the pastor by surprise, and then he looked him right in the face, and Cymbala was puzzled and was fixing to ask him what he needed, what he wanted, when the man just said, I don't want that. What I want is I want the Jesus that you talked about today. This God that you talked about, I want that. Oh, how often we feel like we've done God's work because we give $5 to the man under the bridge. We gave a little extra benevolent offering at church because we know it's going to go to somebody that needs it. And we feel good about that. We feel good about ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. Those are good things to do. You take a cup of cold water to somebody who's struggling and they're dying and they're thirsty, and that's good, and it blesses them. What does it do for their soul? What does every one of us really need? A few more dollars to get us to a payday? Or do all of us have a hope if we don't have Jesus? And we talk about him, he's the light of the world. He's the one who said, I'll never leave you, never forsake you. He's the one who said, all things are possible to him that believes. He's the one who said, you have not because you ask not. He's the one that taught us, call on me, whatever you want, in my name. Call on me. I'll give it to you. You'll receive it. Man, everybody needs Jesus more than they need $5, more than they need $5,000. Everybody needs Jesus. And sometimes Jesus is not on our menu. We kind of feel like he is because we've talked about him, and we are, after all, his light Christians. But we don't know how to give it to him, the man in need. And that man caught the pastor by surprise when he pushed away the money and said, I want that. I want that Jesus. And Jim Cymbala had to sit there for a moment and realize, I need to know how to introduce this man to something bigger than $5. I've got to take him to Jesus. I've got to show him the light. I've got to give him the light. I challenge you today. That's my sermon. And I challenge you today that in this darkening America and darkening world, if you focus on the lights going out, you're going to get terrified. If you focus on your own light, you're going to be encouraged because it's going to shine brighter than ever. I challenge you to re-examine your own efforts for God and your own good works and see if there's not a way that you can just start sharing Jesus. People you love need Jesus. Your sons and daughters going off to high school, they need Jesus. They're going off to college, they really need Jesus. Oh, I know you're going to spend the money on them. And I know they're going to get a lecture or two. But your lecture is not going to help them when they're alone and on their own and having to make choices. But Jesus is. They need Jesus. Have you figured out how to pass the light on? You know it takes nothing from me. If I had a candle here, one burning and one not burning, and I touched the one not burning to the burning one, it lights up, but this one didn't lose anything for lighting the other one. That's the way it is with Christ. He's not asking you to give anything up. You're not going to lose anything. Just tell somebody about Jesus. Don't brush them off and give them $1 to get out of your hair. Just tell somebody about Jesus. I pondered the last few days how I shared Jesus. I mean, I get to preach to you, so I feel like, hey, I shared Jesus today. And then you got to go home and figure out how to do the tough work. Not me. I did my work on Sunday morning. That's not true. I got to share him tomorrow morning at breakfast. I got to share him Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every day, you're going to cross somebody who needs more than money. They need Jesus. They need more than a Bible study. They need more than a lecture. They need Jesus. All of us have had our own experiences like Jim Cymbala did. For mine, it was the couple in my first church that I knocked on their door, and I hated knocking on that door because their house was so pitifully dirty and nasty, and they were so dirty themselves. And when I left that house, just trying to give them a card, invite them to church, and run, the Spirit arrested me on the street before I could drive off, backed up in reverse, and a voice in my car commanded me, look back. And I looked back thinking the house must be on fire. It was that urgent to look back. And all I saw was 4 dirty, nasty people waving, Mom and Dad and 2 dirty little girls. And they were waving like I was a long-lost friend, and I just brushed them off with a card and a duty. And when I looked back and saw that dirty family on a dirty, broken-down porch in a filthy yard, that voice that said, look back, spoke just as clearly to me and said, that is how I found you. To get to your heart's door, I had to wade past years of neglect, the filthy, cluttered toys of your mind, the nasty playthings. I brushed the cobwebs from my hair, my hand. I paused before I knocked, and I wondered if you were worth the knock, but I knocked anyway. And that's where I found you. And I pulled over down at the end of the street and I repented and I said, God, I'm sorry. I will not start my ministry with this kind of concept. If you give me a few days, I'll come back to this house and I'll come back with the right manners, the right spirit. And I did. I came back. One of the proudest moments of my life was when that big, tall, lanky, greasy Dave came down and just fell across an old metal folding chair in my church. He just wanted an altar, and he made his own. He just grabbed a chair and just fell across it. I need Jesus, and he found Jesus. And that's what the world needs. And so I'm just telling you. Tell you what I'm committed to doing. I've been posting some stuff on Facebook. I got this little light drizzle thing now and then. You see this little logo thing right here, Light Time? I'm making a banner out of that. That's going to become a banner for a little post I'm going to put out every week or so, or every time I feel like it, maybe every few days. And the only thing that's ever going to come out when you see that banner on our church site and my Facebook, when you see Light Time, the only thing that's going to be underneath it is something about Jesus Christ. I'm going to praise him. I'm going to magnify him. I'm going to worship him as bigger than sicknesses and cancers and diseases. I'm going to lift him up above politics and griping and corruption. I'm going to put him above rioting and protesting. I'm going to praise Jesus under a little banner like that one right there. And I'm going to put it out on our Grace Notes, and I'm going to put it out on my Facebook page. And when you see it, if you like it, you can repost it or just copy the words and post it on your site. But I'm going to try to use the social media that is so prevalent with stuff today. I'm going to try to use it just to turn the light on about Jesus. It's light time. You can focus on nighttime if you want to, but it's really light time, because the darker it gets, the more you and I need to shine. And we don't need to shine with a little cop-out of a little money here and there. We need to shine for Jesus. We need to tell people about him and what he's done for us and how he changed your life. Let's do it together. Stand, please. Somebody say, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Give the Lord a hand of praise. Father, we thank you today. We really do want to share you with the world. We don't know how. We really do want to lift up Jesus and magnify you. We just don't know how. We're not really good at soul winning. We don't really know how to put you in somebody's heart. We forget sometimes that all we really have to do is just be a light. And if they're hungry, they'll bend over and touch our flame, and then you'll do for them what you did for us. Help us to that. Help us do that as a church body, and help us to do it individually, we pray. And everybody say, help me, Lord, to be the light you want me to be, in Jesus' name. God bless you today. Shake hands, hug somebody, love somebody. We'll see you next Sunday morning.